Introducing you to people across North Carolina and around the world who put their Catholic faith into action. This is FaithWorks on Catholic 540 AM Divine Mercy Radio. Now, here's your host for FaithWorks, Ellen White.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of FaithWorks on Divine Mercy Radio. Our show highlights individuals through God's grace who put their faith into action daily. Amazing people who have an interesting, sometimes overlooked impact on our Catholic faith. On FaithWorks, we share their stories. I'm your host, Ellen White. Today, we're talking about end-of-life care from a Catholic perspective, how we can approach serious illness, suffering, and medical decisions with faith and clarity. That's a concept. I'm honored to be joined by a dear friend, both to me and to Divine Mercy Radio, Dr. Patrick O'Connell, who runs Sentinel Primary Care here in Raleigh. He's a faithful Catholic and a compassionate physician who brings both medical expertise and a deep understanding of church teaching to this important topic. Dr. O'Connell, welcome.
Thank you. Yeah. Glad to be here again.
Okay, so to start, let's share a bit about your background and how your Catholic faith influences your work in medicine.
Yes. I'm very lucky I get to practice at the intersection of medicine and faith. I am a Catholic doctor. So both from a bioethics and practice standpoint, the way that I practice medicine, but also just medicine as a vocation. It's great.
Yeah, what a blessing. And you say there's a Catholic physicians network too,
yes.
I understand.
Yeah, Catholic Medical Association,
yeah.
which has a local chapter.
Ah, okay. Yeah. And what a blessing it is to be able to bring medicine and faith together, I'd imagine.
Yes.
It's very edifying. Okay, so now we digress just a little bit, but let's bring this back to center stage. So we're going to be talking about end-of-life care and what that looks like. I've just recently become familiar with mycatholicwill.com, which is a free organization that provides some information. So Lord willing, we're going to do a follow-up interview with them after this.
Cool.
And I'm looking forward to that. Okay, so let's set the stage. End-of-life decisions can be emotionally and spiritually complex. From a Catholic perspective, why is it important that we approach this topic with both compassion and clarity?
Yes. Well, so the compassion is because it's a hard time. Like, emotions are raw and there's loss and grief. And clarity because you want to make sure you're doing the right thing. That through your actions, you're upholding the goodness of the gift of life that God has given us. Because sometimes the culture, in its compassion, steers us away from upholding that dignity of life, that value of life. So we want to make sure that we're doing both.
And we obviously live in a culture of death.
Yes.
So there's a lot of confusing messages that we're getting bombarded with every day from the media.
Yes.
And from other sources too. So it's so important to be aware and to educate ourselves with the tools that we need now rather than as we're facing death at the end, with either a loved one, a friend, or ourselves, so that we're adequately prepared.
Yes.
Okay, so Catholics believe that suffering can have redemptive value. How could we understand suffering, especially at the end of life, in light of Christ's own suffering? What would you say?
Yeah. So I won't make this. This might seem cheesy on the surface, but it's not. When Paul writes, all things work to the good for those who love God.
Romans 8:28.
It sounds like it should be in a Hallmark card and be cheesy and should be glossed over. But, as you get into the heart of it, like in my own life experience, I can look at that sentence and say, he is exactly right. All things work to the good for those who love God. And so suffering, grieving, physical pain, loss, all of these can work to the good when it's in the context of love for God. And I will say there are some ways in which God works through our suffering to bring about good that it's not going to come about any other way. Like, this is something special that God transforms. So I remember after John Paul II was shot, and after his recovery, and he wrote an encyclical. He said, I have to write about this, about suffering. And one of the lines in the encyclical is he said, we ask the question, why? Like, why is this happening to me? And you throw the question at God, like, why are you letting this happen? And as he wrote, he said, you realize the one to whom you are asking the question is himself on the cross. And it's like God says, I may not take this suffering away from you, but I'll do you one better. I will let your suffering become an engine of grace, a power plant of my love and my grace. So trust in that, because it's true.
And I think you said when it's in the context of love for God, yes, our suffering, and united with his love for us on the cross, it makes our suffering efficacious, and it also works for our own good and salvation. Yes. Excuse me. It reminds me how important it is on a regular basis to call God into every situation that we find ourselves in, and to make it a form of prayer. And I think the sooner that we get into the habit of doing that, the better it is for us, and it becomes second nature.
Yes.
So
I
don't
totally
think
agree.
That's cheesy at all. So share it. All right. Okay. So let's get to some practical implications of this. Yep. How can we support patients and families in embracing this teaching without encouraging passivity or neglect of medical care? Mm-hmm. It's such an important question.
Right. Yeah. So, the medical care still applies. It's, we don't desire the suffering for the sake of suffering. We recognize that it comes, and we offer it to God and unite it to him. But we're still taking care of our bodies. Mm-hmm. Our bodies are part of us, and care for our physical bodily life, that's taking care of God's gift to us. So continued medical care for the person who may be dying, or for yourself, if you yourself are dying, still is relevant. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. I've heard stories about people that said, I don't want morphine because I want to be adequately present for my family members as I'm dying. Right. So, yes. What's the distinction between those two?
Yeah. So yes to that, to the family members who say, I don't want my consciousness clouded, but also yes to the person who says, I understand this is going to make me kind of half asleep all the time, but that can be okay as well. Actually, specifically, Pope Pius XII addressed that exact question, and he said, if a person's responsibilities in life and in this moment as they approach death have been adequately taken care of, it's okay to receive pain medication to the point of clouding consciousness. The person is not obligated to experience all of the pain, but for the purpose of remaining cognizant. So as long as they've taken care of their responsibilities, they've made amends, they've received the anointing of the sick, have been to confession, whatever they need to do. Mm-hmm. It can be perfectly acceptable to then receive morphine, be clouded, and spend the last, days or whatever of your life half asleep. That's okay.
You've mentioned a couple of encyclicals now. Pope John Paul the Great's one on suffering, and then Pope Pius XII on this specific question about whether or not to take medication as you're dying. Yes. I think it's important to remember that these encyclicals, though they might be a little challenging to get through because of the terminology, there are so many great resources out there that can help us understand it and meditate on them and pray over them. So these are teaching documents from the church that can help to enlighten our own minds and our own journey in this regard. So I think I'm glad that you mentioned that. So that's good. Okay. All right. So let's get into some terms as we're talking about medical care, because some of these, and I remember I mentioned this, Dr. O'Connell, when we started, I don't even know how many years ago, talking about this, and you brought up ordinary versus extraordinary care. And there was something else, another term that you used for these two. And I remember going, I'm not getting it. It's not computing in my little brain. So the church makes a distinction, between ordinary and extraordinary means of care.
Yes.
Explain what these terms mean in a medical and moral sense.
Yes. So there's two sets of terms. There's ordinary and extraordinary, like beyond the ordinary. Mm-hmm. And then a parallel means exactly the same thing, just different words, proportionate and disproportionate. Yeah. So what this terminology refers to is a moral assessment of the medical care. It's not an assessment of the technical elements of it. It's not like, ooh, that's extraordinary. Look at that amazing machinery that you're using to maintain life. It's an assessment of the moral nature of it. And it defines care that really morally you have to do. You have to do for the person. Or if you yourself are the patient, that you have to accept or choose for yourself. That's ordinary or proportionate.
Okay. And
versus care that is optional, that's care that is extraordinary, beyond the ordinary, or disproportionate. Okay. So that's care you could still choose to do it, but you don't have to. You're not falling short of your responsibility to yourself if you opt not to do that.
Okay. All right. Got it. Okay. So kind of switching gears just a little bit and talking specifically about the church's teaching on how the church guides Catholics in deciding when it is morally acceptable to forego certain treatments. Yeah. So this extraordinary care, maybe as it relates to that. Okay. What do you say?
Yes. So there's actually a well-developed thought on this, so kind of how to approach it. Because it's first thing I'll say, it's a moral assessment that requires prudence, meaning you have to make a judgment. This is not a bright line like paragraph 3217 of the Catechism says you always have to do dialysis. No, that's not how it works. You have to make a judgment, and the judgment requires an assessment of the particulars of this situation. So, and I'll sort of spell this out in a second, but essentially if you look at the particulars and you say, gosh, I think in order for me to fulfill my obligation to care for my life, I need to do this. That defines care that is ordinary or proportionate and is obligatory. Versus if you're like, boy, I don't know, like there's a ton of side effects with this and I'm not so sure, that leads you to a judgment to say, this is perhaps disproportionate or extraordinary, and this becomes optional. So if I don't do this treatment, I'm not falling short in my responsibility to myself. A classic example, like that's sort of abstract. A classic example, you'd be like, oh, got it, would be a person who has cancer. They've gone through several rounds of treatment, let's say. The cancer is progressing despite the treatment. It's clear, like, we're not going to be able to cure this. And the oncologist says, well, listen, there's this one additional therapy that we could do. It might forestall the cancer for a while. Here's the side effects that are going to come with it. That's the kind of scenario where you've got to weigh out, what are my obligations? Like, I love my life. I love the gift that God has given me. My fundamental disposition is I desire to protect the gift that God has given me. But what are my obligations? Am I obligated to accept every option or some options or none of these options? And so that's where you get into the weighing out. And so there are circumstances where, you need to go forward with the treatment, or options where you could say, no, I'm not going to. So the elements that factor into that, so you're weighing out the benefits and the downsides. So the benefits are going to be what's the likelihood that this treatment is going to bring about some good, and what's the good that it's going to bring about? How big of a benefit do I get from it? So likelihood of benefit, magnitude of benefit. And on the downside are things like, what are the side effects that it's going to cause? What are the financial burdens? What are the burdens that it will put on the people around me who have to care for me? Is there anything immoral to the treatment? this doesn't come up a lot, but like a Jehovah's Witness with a blood transfusion, for example, that would be something the person would judge as immoral. Is it a treatment that is...
Or aborted fetal cell lines used in...
Right. Yeah. Or would it be something that is kind of loathsome and horrifying, like maybe a disfiguring surgery, for example? So these would be some of the considerations. So, for example, so I'm a middle-aged guy, I run a business, I have employees, I have children, I have responsibilities. Let's say I develop pneumonia, and it's a very serious pneumonia. And the proposed treatment is antibiotics. And the antibiotics are pills. I'll take it for 5 days. And so I weigh out what are my, what's the benefit? It saves my life. What's the likelihood of benefit? Pretty high. This will probably work. What are the downsides? Well, I might get diarrhea from the antibiotics. Maybe I'll have an allergic reaction. Doesn't really pose a burden to other people taking care of me. It's not going to interfere with the other responsibilities that I have. There's nothing objectionable about it. So this is one where very clearly the scales tip towards obligation. I have to do this. If I say, no, I'm not doing the antibiotics, I'm actually failing in my responsibility and I'm making the wrong choice, morally the wrong choice. So that is, antibiotics in that case are ordinary, proportionate care that I have to say yes to, morally speaking. Versus if you imagine me, again, let's fast forward 20 years into the future, say I am very frail, several very serious medical conditions. While hospitalized for something else, I develop pneumonia in the hospital that will require IV antibiotics and an IV catheter to be put in for long-term treatment. The antibiotics are very expensive. For some reason, I don't have the capacity to pay for it. What else could I think of with it? And perhaps my survival, regardless of the pneumonia, is already measured in very short terms. So in this case, the weighing out of those pros and cons may tip differently. Maybe it still tips towards favor, and I say, in my judgment of this situation, I still need to do this. Or maybe I judge and say, I don't know. I think the downsides outweigh the benefits. Now it's optional. I could still choose it, but I could choose against it without falling short of my responsibility to myself.
Yeah, it makes sense. I get it. I totally get it. And I think you keep talking about these examples, and I can't help but think how important it is when we have mental clarity to think about this way in advance of when we're presented with this, with family members or with ourselves. So it's important to weigh these things out now and be familiar with what we need to do now so that we're prepared in the future. All right.
And can I throw in one extra little wrinkle to that?
Yes.
It's that our default position is always a disposition of loving the life that God gives us and always desiring to protect it. The question is, do I use this tool to protect it in this circumstance? But the desire is always to protect life. It should never be the decision to say, my life is so miserable, I'd rather be dead, therefore I'm not doing the antibiotics. That's a very different moral position to be in. And just the root assumptions there of this life, this gift that God has given me, I don't want it anymore. Don't start from that position.
Well, and I think you bring up a really good point too, Dr. O'Connell, with especially with this culture of death that we live in now and the push for euthanasia.
Yes. And
so many places that are saying that it's okay to, I was going to say die with dignity, which is a phrase that they use a lot, which is absolutely ridiculous. You can say that in
Catholic terms. You can say it in very not Catholic terms too.
Yes. Right. So, and of course, the church is very clear in its opposition to euthanasia.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
Walk us through the core reasons behind this teaching. What do you think?
Yeah. So fundamentally, it's because life is good. It's a gift from God, and we don't want to cancel out the gift.
Especially in the midst of suffering, and what we can learn from that ourselves, and also what we can teach to others around us.
And so, euthanasia says, I don't want this gift anymore. I want to get rid of it, whether by omission or commission, I'm getting rid of this life. Essentially, that's euthanasia.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't expecting you to stop there. and some people confuse euthanasia with letting nature take its course.
Right.
How can we clarify the difference?
Totally different.
Do that.
Yeah. So let's say in the case of me, a future self who decides against the antibiotics because the downsides are too great, the disposition there is not, I want to get rid of my life. That's not the disposition. The disposition is I love my life, but this tool to protect my life is too difficult to use, so therefore I'm not going to use it. And it's an acknowledgement that eventually the end comes for all of us. And not having to, in all circumstances, use every tool, going down with the ship. Like at some point you're like, all right, Lord, I'm coming home to you. Like that's my ultimate goal, is to come home to you.
I remember when my husband's grandmother, she was at the end of her life, and she was ready, and she kept saying, "I'm ready.
Yeah.
I'm ready."
Yeah.
All right. If you're just tuning in, this is Ellen White with FaithWorks on Divine Mercy Radio. And today I'm speaking with local physician, Dr. Patrick O'Connell, about end-of-life care from a Catholic perspective. And we are grateful for our show's sponsor, Thales College. Okay, we kind of talked about specific examples about making these decisions for end-of-life care. And I want to go to getting appropriate, informed decision, or making informed decisions from reputable resources, because there are certainly not so reputable resources out there. And when patients and families are making end-of-life decisions, what kind of information should they seek?
Yes.
Such as, side effects and risks and
that's exactly it. So the idea from a Catholic moral medical decision-making standpoint is you got to make your decision in the context of the details of that situation. So it's
unique to that situation.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I can't say, for example, in a broad sweeping way, like we talk about ordinary and extraordinary, mm-hmm. You can't say in a broad sweeping way, dialysis is always obligatory. You can't say that, or it's always extraordinary. Because you got to know the circumstances. Like, well, what's going on with this person, and what are this person's set of side effects going to be, and what are the benefits for this person in this situation? So for the information that a family should be looking for is the details. Like saying to the doctor, so tell me, how likely is this to help? How much is it going to help? What am I going to get out of it? Say like that additional chemotherapy medication. Mm-hmm. How much do I get out? If it works, how likely is it? And how much does it extend my life, perhaps? What could I hope for? Like, those are really important questions in making that decision. Mm-hmm. And then on the flip side, how tough is this going to be on me? What are the side effects going to be? What's the financial burden of my family? What's my recovery going to look like? I think of a fella a number of years ago who needed hip replacement surgery badly. He's in a lot of pain. But his wife was recovering from something or other. Mm-hmm. And he said to the doctor, I know that I need the surgery now, but I can't do it now because I need to take care of my wife. Mm-hmm. And so the recovery of his surgery mm-hmm. would have interfered with his duty to his wife. So that was a downside to the treatment. Mm-hmm. That was a very particular piece of information mm-hmm. for that set of circumstances, mm-hmm. to where he said, no, this is extraordinary for me to do this hip replacement surgery right now. I'm going to save it till next year. Mm-hmm. And that's what he did. Mm-hmm. So what you're looking for is all that information that helps you make this moral weighing out of benefits and downsides to a given treatment.
Yeah, it makes sense to the specific experience that you're having right there, and yes. weighing risk, side effects, likelihood of benefit, and cost. Yeah. And I think it's so important to have a good relationship with your physician too. Right. And I think, at this point, it's really good to have a Catholic physician helping you to make these decisions.
Right.
Like Dr. O'Connell. All right. So,
and I'll say too, actually, for as a resource, and we may bring this up again at the end, but as a resource for people who are struggling with these kinds of situations, are like, I don't know what to do. Like, I don't know how to handle this. a phenomenal resource is the National Catholic Bioethics Center. I love them.
Yes.
They're so good.
Yes.
I donate money to them to support their mission. So they have a consultation service. So, Bill in Raleigh can call the National Catholic Bioethics Center and say, my brother is in the hospital and here's what's happening and the doctors are asking me what to do and I don't know what to do. The National Catholic Bioethics Center will help with the moral decisions. They're so good.
I think that I haven't been on in a while, but I think that they have a forum too with different question answer things. Father Tad Paholchuk has been a part of that group for a long time and he is amazing.
Yeah, he's great.
So great plug for the National Catholic Bioethics Center. And they're in Virginia.
And it's free. Like
in Virginia?
Pennsylvania.
Oh, Pennsylvania, that's right.
Yeah, it's free. The consultation's free. So you call them, they help you. Great.
Excellent resource. We are blessed to have them in the church.
Yes.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about specifics of diagnoses, ordinary versus extraordinary care, and downsides of choosing one treatment versus another, and cost and that sort of thing. And we need to focus a little bit, I think, Dr. O'Connell, on hope. And prudence. I think you mentioned prudence a little bit in this discussion. So how do hope in the eternal life and the virtue of prudence come into play when making medical decisions?
Yeah. So there's different ways. Part of it is recognizing our ultimate home is with God. And kind of as a correlate to that, not making an idol of life and health.
We experienced that, I think, during COVID, wouldn't you say?
Yes, I agree.
That was our idol above anything else, taking care of our health.
It's funny. I remember a priest had said, I knew where he was coming from, so it was a healthy, balanced way that he said this, but he said, there's only so much I'm willing to do to protect my life on this earth. And because he has the eternal view. He knows that this life is the training ground for the eternal life.
I love it. And there's a Latin phrase, and I always butcher it when I try to say it in Latin, but the English translation is, what is this in light of eternity? So looking at everything, that you're experiencing in light of eternity, because everything we do has eternal consequences. Yeah. So I interviewed a physician, Dr. Klausner, who works with the homeless community at Wake Med, and his program is amazing. And I'll get some information to you because I think he would, the two of you would be fast buddies. But in the interview, he talked about the importance of hope in treatment, or just having the chaplain there at the clinic, and how efficacious it is for them to be present with these patients as they're caring for them, and to talk about the eternal view as opposed to the local view.
Yes.
And how profound it was for them. So, being hopeful is a very important virtue to have in the midst of these. So,
yeah. And, and I'll say too, this goes back to the suffering thing we were talking about earlier. Like, gosh, you think, how many times have you prayed for someone's healing and recovery, and they don't recover, and they're not healed? But, I think so often God's action is like, you know what, I'm not going to take this away from you, but I will be there with you. I'll be right there with you in it. Mm-hmm. And just trusting in that, like that's one of the deepest truths. Like God is right there in the midst of it. Mm-hmm. Again, not a platitude. It could sound like it, but it's not. It's the deepest truth.
Mm-hmm. Let your heart rest in that. All right, let's get down to the nitty gritty and talk about some specific forms that we can fill out in advance to be prepared. So we've got advance directives, healthcare proxy, durable power of attorney, all these terms that make my eyes go, ugh.
Yes, your head can swim.
All right, so talk about advance directives.
So I'll let me do this. Let me give you a punchline and then I'll back up and tell more. Okay. So if you want a punchline, it's pick somebody who you trust, make them your healthcare power of attorney, and be done with it. That's the simplest answer.
Okay.
Second simplest answer. The Diocese of Raleigh has a really good document online. If you Google search Diocese of Raleigh, advanced directives or living will, something like that, it will come up. It's a PDF. It was put together by a team of attorneys and priests and physicians, probably 15 years ago at this point, maybe more. It's very good. And the whole document's maybe 15 pages long. The first half of it is just like a basic education in the topic. And then the second half of it is the legal documents that you might need framed in a Catholic way so that you don't have to become your own bioethicist to do your legal paperwork. It's a really good resource. And apparently as it was legally designed in terms of like numbers of witnesses and stuff like that, that it is valid in all 50 states. Because some, like, if states have different requirements, maybe this isn't valid in that state, but this one was designed to be universally valid.
I'll bring that up in my interview with mycatholicwell.com, because I'm sure that they'll be talking about some various forms and stuff too. So go to Diocese of Raleigh Advanced Directives, you said?
Yeah, if you do a search for that, that'll get you there. You'll find it.
And you'll also find various videos of Dr. O'Connell a few years ago.
The younger version.
And it was during our beloved Bishop Burbidge.
Yeah, that's right.
His time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
No. All right.
But then, so aside from that, so then there's all these various documents that are available, that are out there. And to comment on them briefly, so a healthcare power of attorney. So this is a document in which if you designate who you want to step in as your medical decision maker if you are unable to make your own decisions. And you can pick anybody you want. And you can pick second in line and third in line.
Oh, okay.
Now, by default in North Carolina, it's going to go to a spouse if you don't designate someone else. Like if there's no designated person, it's going to be a spouse. And then it's, I can't remember, like maybe adult children or parent. I don't remember. But you could pick anyone. And whoever you pick as number one, that is your spokesperson if you are unable to speak for yourself.
Okay.
And that's a good document. And just give them full authority. Just you pick somebody you trust and just say, do whatever this person says.
And this can be found also under the advanced directives thing on the website? Or?
So this is, the designation of a healthcare power of attorney is embedded within the diocese document.
Okay.
Or you can do it as a standalone document as well.
Okay.
And so that I think is good. That's a good document. Second is going to be North Carolina's document, a living will. Now, this is often embedded within a will. So if you're doing estate planning documents, I think very commonly attorneys will put a living will into the larger will document or estate planning document. So I don't love North Carolina's living will, or I mean living wills in general. A secular living will gives you options that you ought not choose. So they're going to say things like, if I am dying or if I'm permanently comatose, I want life-sustaining measures, or I don't. Check one or the other. I want to be fed, or I don't. Check one or the other. And the problem is, like we just talked about, when you're making these kinds of decisions of what needs to be done in this situation, you need it to be this situation. You need the details of this particular set of circumstances to make those kinds of decisions. But a living will proposes that you make those decisions in advance without any of the circumstances. And that's problematic. So from a Catholic standpoint, it doesn't allow for that decision making within the circumstances as they arise.
So wait, the secular one for a living will is very broad and covers everything? I'm not understanding what you're saying.
So at least North Carolina's version, it's going to cover life-sustaining measures, yes or no, artificial nutrition and hydration, yes or no. And so the problem is, like right now in the fall of 2025, I'm deciding for someday in 2028 whether I want life-sustaining measures or not. And the problem is it needs to be 2028 when I make that decision, or someone makes it on my behalf, which is why I point you back to the healthcare power of attorney.
Oh, okay.
It's like, just let the healthcare power of attorney make those decisions.
So you're saying not to do a living will.
I don't love it. Or if you're going to do it, just check yes on stuff.
Well, that brings up an interesting point to me, Dr. O'Connell, with organ donation. There's been a lot of talk in the news recently about how when you check that box to be an organ donor, sometimes they'll end your life too soon to get those organs. Have you heard anything about this?
I don't keep up with the latest on it, but that is a concern. If a person dies and you take organs for transplantation, that's fine. If a person is alive and you take vital organs in particular, the heart, let's say, and the person dies because you took their heart, well, that's a problem. They didn't die of their disease. They didn't die of their accident. They died because you took their heart out. So the proper determination that a person has died is a crucial moral piece of the whole organ transplantation.
Well, then let me ask you this question. You know what's coming. How do you feel about organ donation?
Yeah, I think, in principle, it's fine as long as you are removing organs from people who are deceased. Or if you're alive and you want to donate a kidney where it's not going to end your life to do so, then that's fine. So within the Catholic realm, there's not an authoritative Catholic teaching on what are the biological indicators that death has occurred. Because death is a metaphysical phenomenon. It is the separation of the soul from the body. So how do you measure when that's happened? You can't measure it directly. So you have to look at indirect indicators. So traditionally, one of the indicators has been that your heart has stopped beating, and it's been a while. That's a reliable indicator. The soul has left the body. The area of uncertainty within Catholic teaching is the concept of brain death. And so the church has not spoken authoritatively on it. There are opinions on either side. I'm not smart enough to know. So I don't have a strong opinion on it. I will wait for the magisterium to tell me.
That's a good answer.
But essentially, that's the what the church is trying to come to certainty on is, do we know this person has died, so that removing the organs is not the cause of the person's death? Because if it is the cause of death, then you're doing the wrong thing. Stop that.
I might be opening up a can of worms here, but Terry Schiavo, the one that was killed.
Yes.
By removing necessary feeding. Her brother has been on the speaking circuit. God bless him, because he's been doing this for years and years and years. And he's been on Catholic radio a lot talking about it and really educating in this uphill battle. But so keep him in prayer.
Yeah. And I'd like to comment on that. So her scenario was one where she had very severe brain injury, but by nobody's criteria would she be declared brain dead. So from a Catholic standpoint, there's no biological indicator to say Terry Schiavo had died. She was alive, severely injured, but alive, and then died of dehydration because they stopped hydrating her and feeding her.
Jesus mercy. All right. So in speaking to that too, because of the culture that we live in, and the phrases dying with dignity, how can we lovingly witness to the dignity of every life, even in suffering? What would give some specific examples of how we can do it as Catholics in this culture?
Oh, gosh. What most immediately comes to mind is for that person who is facing death, is just being there with them, accompanying them. Because it's the emotional hardship of the situation for the family members can, I think, make you want to withdraw and be like, this is too painful for me. But to be like, all right, I'm going to swallow the hardship and the pain so that I can be here with this person as they're dying.
Just being present.
Yeah.
For them. And, I did have a friend tell me recently, their recommendation for situations like this was to ask questions about childhood, or if it's a parent, what do you remember about my childhood, or just to kind of bring them back to those times and help them relive those happy memories, Lord willing. All right, so Let's talk a little bit about the role of the anointing of the sick and how that plays in caring for the whole person at the end of life. Why do you feel like it's necessary to have that anointing?
I mean, ultimately, the anointing points towards our eternal ends. This life will end eventually, one way or the other. And so anointing of the sick, while asking for God's healing, also acknowledges that our ultimate destiny is with him. And so it maintains the priority that remaining alive forever on this life is not our goal. Going home to God is.
Well, and on that note, as we end this today, what's one takeaway that you hope every listener remembers when it comes to end-of-life care? Dr. O'Connell, what would you say?
I would say that I hope it's been useful sort of hearing a weighing out of how do you figure out what is proportionate and disproportionate? What do I need to do? What do I not need to do? And if you're stuck, call the National Catholic Bioethics Center.
Or go to the Diocese of Raleigh and look up the, what was it again?
Oh, right.
You lost it. The Advanced Directives.
Yes.
So Google Diocese of Raleigh Advanced Directives, and they have a PDF there with all the forms that you need to fill out. And National Catholic Bioethics Center, you will be inundated with a tremendous amount of information to educate yourself. Do it now. Don't wait. That would be my recommendation.
Yeah.
All right. Gosh, Dr. O'Connell, as always, it goes so fast.
Yes.
It's been way too long since we've had you in the studio. So please come back. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today and for the compassionate, faithful care you give your patients and your witness to the dignity of every human life. We've covered a lot, from the redemptive value of suffering to the difference between ordinary versus extraordinary care, to advanced directives and the Church's clear teaching on euthanasia. If there's one thing I hope our listeners take away, it's this: the Church doesn't leave us alone in these difficult moments. Her teaching is not only clear, it's deeply human and full of hope. If you're facing end-of-life decisions for yourself or a loved one, take time to pray, learn, and seek wise counsel. And remember, every life, no matter how frail or near its end, is always a gift. If you missed any part of this episode or want to catch up on past conversations filled with inspiration and hope, you can find them at divinemercyradio.org. Just click on local shows. And don't forget, you can take FaithWorks wherever you go. And don't forget, you can take FaithWorks with you wherever you go. Just download the free Divine Mercy Radio app from your app store. Simply search Divine Mercy Radio NC, and you're all set to listen anytime, anywhere. Until next time, keep living your faith boldly, because faith works. God bless.